Yo, what's up? Yours truly here. Now, since my review on the Spyro trilogy is done, I think it's time to move on to review something else. And it's what you're looking at, folks. Since not many people review the first Crash Bandicoot game out there, I'm gonna give it props and review it next. So let's begin. During the days of 1996, Sony were working hard to make competition with Nintendo after the release of Super Mario 64, which got universally positive reviews at its release, being claimed as the greatest game of all time. I beg to differ. But then came along video game developer Naughty Dog. With their help, Sony was able to finally release their own video game starring their own mascot on the Sony PlayStation, and thus Crash Bandicoot came into existence. The plot begins in a Frankenstein-like scene where the evil mad scientist, Dr. Neocortex, mutates a bandicoot named Crash and begins to turn him into his military leader. However, the experiment goes wrong and Crash escapes Cortex's castle, leaving his girlfriend Tawna behind. Thus, Crash goes on a journey to save Tawna and defeat Cortex. So that's the plot, nothing too special. Now, Crash Bandicoot is your typical linear platformer, where the goal is to reach from point A to point B. You have the ability to jump and spin like the Tasmanian Devil. You can use these two abilities to break open crates or kill enemies. The things you collect throughout the levels are small fruits called Wampa. At first I thought these were apples, but I later found out that they were made up fruits called Wampa. If you collect 100 of these juicy babies, you can earn yourself an extra life. Most of the fruits are mainly in boxes. You can get one of them in the normal crate, but if you come across crates with a question mark, you can get a few amount of fruits, or if you're lucky enough, you can get another extra life. Another thing that's important to collect is a witch doctor's mask, later to be called Aku Aku. These masks support your hit points, so you don't have to worry much about being killed by enemies a lot, which is kinda similar to Sparks in Spyro. Anyway, if you're able to collect 3 masks in a row, Crash will turn invincible and speed up for a limit of time. Also, when you start a new game, in some levels you'll need to collect tokens of Crash's girlfriend, which will transport you to a bonus level. These levels can be tedious, but it's worth it to get more lives and to be able to save your game at least. Now, going from point A to point B is not the only objective you have to do in Crash Bandicoot. The other objective, if you want to complete the whole game 100%, is smash every single box that will earn you a gem or a key. When obtaining a gem, you can access a secret area in another level, depending on the colour of the gem you have collected. Though this gets frustrating, because if you die, you have to smash all the boxes again, and it gets even worse when you do the harder levels, but I'll leave the criticism for later. Moving on to boss fights. Well, let's focus. They are not the best boss fights in the Crash series, but for the first game in the series they still did a pretty decent job. But the one I found really irritating was the boss fight with Ripperoo. It's just annoying that you have to carefully jump on platform to platform and stare out of the water just to make sure you can use a TNT crate to blow Ripperoo's ass to Kingdom Come. But other than that, the bosses are still fun to fight at times. Okay, that's pretty much all I have to say about the gameplay. Let's continue on. Graphic wise, even for its time in 1996, the game looks great. I have to say, Naughty Dog does do a really good job with the designs, and this is where it all began. Sure, some of the shadow effects look a bit messy, which is thankfully improved in the sequels, but for the most part, the graphics and designs fit the mood of the game perfectly. For the most part, the game is third dimensional, but later levels will be 2D side-scrolling levels. Now for the soundtrack. Well, to be honest, I prefer Spyro's soundtrack over Crash's soundtrack, but regardless, the soundtrack in Crash Bandicoot is nice, warm, and has a relaxing feel to it. The game goes from peaceful jungle music to wacky and humorous to dark and creepy laboratory music. Now that the positives are our way, let's begin with the negatives. First negative I have is that the controls feel a tad loose, which can lead to hits or deaths. Also, controlling the hog and the hog riding levels feels sluggish and stale. This takes some time and patience to get grips with. Another negative I have is that the bonus levels. Seriously, as I said before, they feel tedious to go through and you cannot, I repeat, you cannot go back to them if you die, which can easily cost you from saving your game. I'm not even shying about that. And if I had to pick one level in the game that I heavily despise, it would be Slippery Climb. This is the most ridiculously hardest level in the entire fucking game. Seriously, nothing about this level made me have fun, and I want to get it through as fast as possible, but no, when I do that, I always fall off and fall to my demise. I swear, if anyone forces me to play this level again, let me answer that with 4 little words. Hell to the no! Now, should we continue? Now for the final verdict. Well, in my opinion, this is the most overlooked Crash Bandicoot game in the trilogy compared to the sequels. Sure, I agree that the sequels were more superior, but you still gotta appreciate where they came from. I mean, if we didn't have the original game, where would the sequels be? That's the way I see it. And it's pretty much the way I feel about this game and Spyro 1. Even though Spyro 1 is a bit overrated with some Spyro fans. But anyway, while far from the best PS1 game, Crash Bandicoot is still a fun experience that will be remembered by many PlayStation 1 gamers from the 90s. With that said, I give the game an 8.5 out of 10, meaning great.